Making 500 grand a year, congratulations. Well, let me ask you this. If you stop working tomorrow, how long would your money last? Well, if you're like most high income earners that I talk to all the time, your money would probably dry up pretty fast. And that's because nobody ever told you the truth. And that is this. If your income stops when you stop working, then this, 3 words, you are broke. That was a hard pill to swallow when I first heard this years ago. You know what? It doesn't matter if you make $50,000 a year, $500,000 a year, or even $5 million a year. If you're trading time for money, you're just a highly paid wage slave. So how do you escape? Well, in this video, I'm going to break down exactly the system that traps you, and more importantly, how to get out and how to get out fast. If you're new here, I'm Dr. Jeff Anzalone, a dentist on a mission to get you to the point that you're not a wage slave. Work is optional to you. I have a free passive income training program, links below this video. All right, let's first talk about the big lie that we're sold. And again, this is from personal experience. You know, when I'm in high school, when I'm in college, and this was back in the early to mid 90s. All right, that just dates me a little bit. But back then, of course, go to school, make good grades. We had to get a degree, but we had to get a professional degree back then because there wasn't really internet and YouTube and social media and all the different ways you can make money online. So if you wanted to make money back then, you want to go to medical school, dental school, law school, something like that. You studied all the time, you worked hard, you got out later. And then back then, there was Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman. Those were the two, quote, big financial gurus back then. They wrote books, they had radio shows, that was about it. And again, this was before all the internet blew up and anybody could make a video or write a book with AI or anything like that. And all of them said the same thing. You work for 30, 40 years. If you're diligent every year, every month, put money in a 401k, then you're almost guaranteed to retire a millionaire at 65, okay? They never questioned how long you had to work. They never questioned if you're working that long and you don't want to continue in that, profession or job or whatever. It was just like a mindset, like, okay, if I go to dental school, I'm going to work for 34 years and retire, hopefully a millionaire as a dentist. I'm not going to change careers. I'm not going to do anything else. That was just a one path. And you see everybody that back then that does it. And you don't even question your health. You don't even, when you're in your 20s or 30s, you're looking to the future. You're not even thinking about if, something could happen in your 40s or 50s or to your spouse or whatever that would make you not want to continue your degree, right? But society says that this, if you read the book, I've got it over here on my shelf, The Millionaire Next Door was actually written when I was it came out when I was a senior in college, 1996. Literally, that was a path to success. Drive used cars, shop at the secondhand store for clothes, hardly ever go on vacations, and just save. And then again, hopefully your health is okay, but you're going to be a millionaire when you're in your 60s. But is that really success these days? Okay, let's talk about now. Let's talk about the reality that nobody talks about. And it's this. And I really wish somebody would have come to not just dental school. I wish they would come to me in college. My kids now are in college and high school, both about to be in college. And I started talking to them about this that I'm talking to you about in high school. And the reality that nobody talks about is this. If you have to keep working to maintain your lifestyle, you're not rich. You're trapped. Nobody ever told me that. Has anybody ever told you that? Maybe now, but did they tell you that back when you were in high school or college? So if you have to keep working to maintain your lifestyle, trading time for money, you're not rich, you're trapped. The more you make, typically, the more people make, the more they spend. Think about the path of the doctor. They're broke. We get out of school. We got all this debt, but we can finally make this money. So what do? We run out, we buy the bigger house. We already have a car, but let's get a nicer one. Most of the places in the country, public schools are okay, but we want the status, so let's send our kids to private school. So you're, in reality, you know, on the old safes where you know, do the numbers left, right, controls and opens the safe. In reality, your paycheck, the amount on your paycheck, that is controlling your life. Perfect example, let's take a surgeon. A surgeon I know makes $1 million a year or more. He's working minimum 80 hours a week. He's just a higher paid slave than, let's say, somebody else. Guess what? The second he stops working, the money stops coming in. Same game as somebody making 50 grand a year, just bigger numbers. Again, your paycheck controls your life. So let me share with you my wake-up call. All right, so this, to me, this was the moment that I realized this was my reality. I realized I was trapped. My kids were like 8 and 6 years old. We went snow skiing, and a kid cut out in front of me. And you know, when you put your hands down when you fall, to catch your fall, I injure my hand. And you may be thinking, well, what do you mean that made you realize you were trapped? Well, think about all these thoughts that went through my head. I had never stopped to think. Again, the big lie. Remember what we talked about, the big lie that we were sold? that you work until you're 65, 401k, and then you're going to retire as a millionaire. You never think that path, something can happen. Well, that moment when I injured my hand, that was like a break in the path. You know, like you're going down the interstate and everything's going great. You're going to the beach and all of a sudden you see brake lights ahead. And then you're stuck in traffic for hours and hours. It's kind of like that. You're cruising down the road to retirement and then you hit the traffic jam and it gives you time to think. And it made me think hard about, again, how I was making money. And if I couldn't use my hands, I couldn't make money. I was trading patience for money. I had a decent income, good career, wasn't working, you know, crazy hours, but that wake-up call really made me realize I had zero freedom. And really up until that point, I started thinking about vacations. You know, we were really taught to avoid them from Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman until you completely got out of debt. Well, at that time that I had that injury, I had just paid off all the debt and had paid off that first house. But when I look back at the vacations, at that time, the longest I'd ever taken a vacation was 5 days. And think about your situation, your vacation situation. It's not that we can't afford going on a 1 week, a 2 week, a 3 week vacation. Again, it's not because you probably can't afford them or I couldn't afford them back then. But the thing is, we couldn't afford, or I couldn't afford back then, the lost time. If I'd have taken off a month in the summer, I still had to pay employees, overhead, taxes. The bills kept coming in, but the money stopped. And then the retirement, you know, I wouldn't have been able to keep putting money in a 401k. So at that point, when I had that wake-up call, I really started to pay attention to what real wealthy people did. I'm not talking about people that just had a high income, doctors, dentists, attorneys, people like that. And that was really the only people that I knew personally. I really started to study wealthy people that have already passed on and people that were still alive today. Then I started to pay attention, and then when I would go to meetings or trips or whatever, I started to interact with them. And funny thing was, they don't grind away in a job like I was doing. And that made me realize that most of us, myself included, back then were this. We were earners. That more than likely you're an earner. You go to a job, even if you own your own business or practice, you earn income. They weren't. They were owners. They owned businesses. They owned real estate. They owned companies, and they were living life on their own term. So, okay, well, we know the problem. Maybe I caused you to kind of wake up and realize how you're making money, hopefully. So let's talk about what to do about it. Let's talk about the escape plan and the 3 steps that we can do. Probably all 3 of these, you've heard them before, but we're really going to hone in on them to make you realize what's going on and hopefully do something about it. Step number one, I know you've been told this before. Stop trading your valuable time for money. How many times have you heard that? And what does it do? Just what goes over your head? Oh, I'll get around to the point where I've stopped trading my time for money. I know I need to stop trading time for money. I know I'm trading time for money, but what else can I do? Well, if you want to continue being tricked and leading the lie that they've been telling us and being nothing but a wage slave, then yeah, keep trading time for money. Most people watching this, that's what they'll keep doing, and that's fine. At least they know there's an option. But remember, wealthy people, they don't do this. They don't work harder. They use their brains. They work smarter. They spend their money buying back their time by investing in cash flowing assets that pay to buy back their time, not them themselves. Perfect example is if you own let's say you own a business. Let's say you're a dentist and you own a clinic. Well, you can get somebody in to work for you. Well, you have to pay them, of course, but now you can step away and buy back your time. Number two, I want you to, and we just alluded to this in number one, I want you to start building, and it's not overnight, but I want you to start building income streams that are going to pay you even when you're not working. Well, like what, Jeff? Go out and buy real estate. If you don't want to deal with tenants or anything like that, either hire a property owner, a property manager, or you could invest in what I invest in, syndications. Go buy businesses that generate income. There's tons of websites out there right now that have businesses, boring businesses, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, all the private equity are buying up these businesses. There's guys out there in their 50s and 60s and 70s that are trying to sell these businesses, but they want to keep working in the business, but they don't want to deal with all the headaches and everything. You can actually buy these businesses and be passive. There's all kinds of different things you can do out there to build income streams that don't involve you. So you want to create income that keeps flowing whether you show up or not. And I've talked about this till the cows have come home, but this is where we come up with Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant. Remember, this is where most people are on the left side. Right now, you're probably either an employee or you're self-employed. I started off as an employee, as an associate dentist. After 2 years, I bought this building, became self-employed. Guess what? This is what Kiyosaki calls the poor side. You're still trading your time for money. And that was the exact thing, number one, that we said to stop doing. 95% of the people are on this side versus the goal is to get from the poor to the rich side. And that's when you become a business owner. Remember, we just talked about buying businesses. You could buy business, or if you don't want to do that and you want to do what I'm doing, go from self-employed to the I quadrant. That's the investor quadrant. That's where the money that's coming in, it's replacing your expenses. And what happens is, pretty much your expenses probably, or if you're like me, they're pretty much don't really change that much. Well, let's say your expenses are 15 grand a month. Well, it may be 17,000 one month and 13,000 the next and 14 and 16, but more than likely they're probably going to stay average. Well, here's what's going to happen. You're going to start slowly but surely replacing those expenses with passive income. $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month. Then you're going to get to the point where you'll replace your expenses, $15,000 a month. But what happens is it's like a passive income snowball, $15,000, $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 a month. But more than likely your expenses are going to stay at 15. And it's just like you have so much money coming in, it's just silly to keep trading your time for money unless you just want to. Step number 3, play a different game. What is this? Well, stop chasing the quote traditional. What's the traditional version of success? People are always wanting to do things to earn more money. That's it. It's just they're wanting to earn more money to spend more money. Earn more money, spend more money. Perfect example is the coaches, college coaches, pro coaches. They're making $5 million a year. Well, they'll move their family all across the country to make $7 million a year. And then they'll go and move to make 10 million a year, and then 15, but they're still having to trade time for money. Instead of earning more to spend more, play a different game. Start buying your time back. Work because you want to. I'm not telling you to quit working if you love to work, but do it on your own terms. Work because you want to, not because you have to. Okay? So I hope all of this has woke you up to how you're making money and how you can actually get money to just simply buy back your time to operate differently. Now, if you're just completely tired of just grinding it out, you're tired of trading time for dollars, I'm telling you there's a better way. And if you want to go deeper with this and continue the process, I break it down all for you in this next video.